it's quite interesting because you get your piece of paper, you write all the bits and pieces, so you've got this many pounds of sugar, because that's where the main alcohol content comes from, the raw sugar. I mean, you in America, I think, have access to, is it fructose sugar? What?
I get corn sugar.
That's it, corn sugar. Whereas I prefer to use caster sugar, which is, it dissolves a shitload easier. Really it does. It dissolves so much easier. And you put X amount of this and X amount of that. And I second stage ferment straight into a 5-liter demijohn with water traps, and that's my second stage ferment. And all I'm going to do now is I'm going to give it like 2 weeks, maybe a month, and let all the carbon dioxide from the bacteria, from the yeast, build it up and whatever have you. I then canter some out into the specific gravity meter, and then I read the alcohol content, and when I get to the right alcohol content, because it starts at like 5, and the longer you leave it, the higher the alcohol content gets. So I'm going to pull this set out at 8. Right now I'm sitting on 7.5, so a day maybe extra longer, and I've got 8% alcohol, and I'm going to pull it, which means I've still got a lot of sweetness from the apple juice and the sugar that I put in there for the second stage ferment, you see. And then to stop the fermentation, just stick it in the fridge. Boom.
Yeah, I need to get a little more organized with that. I've been trying different things. I think I got 3 brews done last season before it got too hot, and I don't remember when I started, but I probably need to be a little more organized so that I can do better in the future, because I would like to have, what I really want to get down to is I like to simplify my process as much as possible so that I can just follow the same instructions every goddamn time, and then if I'm just changing out flavors, then I just change out flavors and it's no big deal.
So it's just you trying to compartmentalize and basically modularize all the whole bits and pieces, which isn't a bad idea, but write it down, honestly, write it down so you can know, right, okay, so this alcohol content was a bit too much, either I put less sugar in or I pull it out earlier and stick it in the fridge to stop the fermentation, because you can actually halt the fermentation, as in the alcohol content, you can halt that depending on how long you let the second stage go on for. And the better the first stage, this is why the first stage is so crucial, the better the first stage fermentation, the cleaner stuff is, the more sort of raw stuff is, the better the first stage fermentation. You get a lot more product rather than having to leave the sort of last 4 inches of the barrel, because I never take any more than the last 4 inches. You can get away with saying maybe leave the last 2 because it's just that good and that clear. When you ferment it this time, chop up some apples, okay, in the first stage, and throw them apples, the apple pieces into the first stage. Do that.
Why?
I mean, if you want to,
No, but why?
I think it comes out a bit more sort of Granny Smithy, if that makes any sense. I crushed up a whole lot of apples and had a whole lot of pulp left over from all the crushed up bits and pieces, but you could still feel there was a bit of moisture after I crushed all the apples. So what I did was I took like 3 or 4 handfuls and I put them in as well into the first stage, and I mixed it all together with the yeast and whatever have you. And I think it's come out a bit more apple-y, if that makes sense. I mean, I've used apple juice, so of course it'll come out apple, but there's a different sort of feel to the mouth with it all. I mean, it all gets filtered out anyway, so it's not really a big deal because it all sinks down to the bottom and whatever. So I just used some of the pulp that I'd crushed and stuck it in the barrel as well. I mean, why not?
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I'll get apples in this one or not. We'll see.
Well, pumpkin in your case, Don't use frickin' bacon.
No, not going to be doing bacon. Although one thing, so there is a couple of things that I think I'd like to move to doing at some point, and that's going to be that I've seen the fermenters that are kind of upside down with a little bottle thing on the bottom that disconnects separately. Yeah. So that way, like, all of the yeast that drains down ends up in those other little bottle things, and you don't have to sift them as much, because then you just disconnect those bottles and then you drain what's been fermenting separately, and it's already got all the yeast out of it.
You see, I just use coffee filter. I just double up on a coffee filter and I pour it straight into a funnel. Then that goes into the individual bottles.
I've done that. I've put like 2 and 3 coffee filters between that. I even last year, my last brew that I did, I threw some cheesecloth on top of the coffee filters, and I'm still getting material, yeast and whatnot in the bottles, so I'm not getting like a really, really super clear. Every bottle still ends up having yeast in it. So I don't know if I'll ever get that out entirely. I mean, it would be nice if I could, but I mean, if I don't, I don't.
So your cider doesn't clear up. Does it still remain cloudy, does it?
No, the cider itself does, because I have all the bottles laying on their side in like a wine fridge.
Okay.
But so the cider itself gets nice and clear and it looks great, but and on one end of the bottle there's a bunch of sediment.
Yeah, okay. okay. I mean,
And so what I've been wanting to do is I want to filter it enough that I can get that sediment out of there. But I just don't. I haven't been able to find a way to. I probably have to filter it multiple times.
no, I'm pretty sure that you can get if you really want to get I mean, I know I can't get rid of the sediment. I don't have the facilities or the potential to do that. I know that. But if I've just been stacking up coffee filters, it does remove the majority of the stuff. It really does. But you're right. Some sediment does still reach through very, very fine particles, which isn't really a problem.
Yeah, it has no bad effect on the cider at all. It still tastes really good. But I did learn last year that, 4 ounces of vanilla flavoring for the 6 gallon bucket that I had was too much. So I'm going to have to cut that at least in half, maybe less.
I'd start at a tenth. I'd start at a tenth of of it really. A tenth, like 2 drops. Because that stuff is like super concentrated, isn't it?
I don't know. The stuff that I bought was for flavoring beer and wine. And it said that you're supposed to put 1 ounce in per gallon. And I was like, well, I have 4 ounces and I have about 6 gallons, but I'm probably going to get about 5 gallons out of this, so I'll just pour the 4 ounces in. It was too much. So I think what I'm going to do with the pumpkin flavoring, at least on the first batch, I'm either going to do 1 or 2 ounces, and I'm not going to do any more than that.
Start with 1, and then if 1's too little, go up, say, 0.25, if you know what I mean. Don't go fucking the full hog and go 2 ounces, because then, things about, isn't it with cooking, it's not like it's not like a factor of 2, it's like a factor of 8, or something like that, isn't it, with cooking? You can add like a drop, but you're gonna add like a drop in a little bit, because if you go like 2 drops, you're done. You've overcooked it, you see. Yeah,
and I was trying to decide if I wanted to add vanilla flavoring to this batch as well. Like vanilla with the pumpkin and the cinnamon. I don't know.
Maybe a bit much. Cinnamon and pumpkin, they go well together, but putting the vanilla maybe a bit much. Cinnamon and vanilla, yes, but then you've got with cider, you've already got the apple profile. Okay, you've already got that sort of feel in your mouth. Adding the cinnamon to it will add something else to it. The pumpkin will just add another sort of layer of it. Putting the vanilla might just completely overdo it, you see. Might just kill it.
Well, yeah, the point of adding the vanilla when I just had the apple was to try and get it as close to like an apple pie type flavor.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Okay, yeah, so that's why I wasn't sure if I should add the vanilla and the pumpkin and just give small amounts of both.
I will be keen to hear the progress you've made on this brew. Welcome back to this week's episode. Yes, it's upcoming games. Myself and Drac, apologies, we're talking about our other passion, cider making. Yes, sorry about that. Well, it's a lovely segue into these upcoming games of December 2019. And as always, Drac is joining me, and he's got some games for us. Yes. Again, Drac has done all the heavy lifting. Great work, thank you, Drac. And he is ready to share what he thinks is good for December.
Well, my main list includes Master Chief Collection on PC. And that's it. We can go home now.
Yeah, seriously, you guys don't deserve Halo on PC, or rather Halo Reach on PC. So you're not going to get it.
Yeah, okay. That was the story, I don't know how many years ago, but yeah, Master Chief is finally coming back to PC. They're going to roll out each one of the games that I'll list. They're going to roll them out one at a time over the next year until we get Halo 5, which is due out, I think, around holiday time frame next year. But on the 3rd of December, we get the Master Chief Collection. The first game is going to be Halo Reach, which... Correct me if I'm wrong. I think this was like the 2nd or 3rd game that actually got released, but it's actually a prequel to Combat Evolved, which was Halo 1, which was the first game that was released.
Yeah, it's a prequel to actual Halo Combat Evolved. Halo Reach, for me, was the pinnacle of the whole sort of Halo overarching story. And for me, the last proper Halo game was Halo 3. In Halo 3 ODST, Orbital Drop, Shock Troops, or whatever have you, you can actually see hints of Destiny in it. You can run around the cityscapes and whatever have you, and actually see hints of the game Destiny that Bungie were trying to produce and make. And then after Halo 4, just went sideways. Straight sideways.
So, yeah, you'll get Halo Reach on the 3rd, and then at some point in the future, I haven't seen release dates for the other games. You'll get Combat Evolved, then Halo 2, then Halo 3, then Halo 3 ODST, and finally Halo 4. Now, you can buy each one of these games, as I understand it, for $9.99 each, but it seems kind of silly, because for $39 $49.99, you can get the entire pack with all the games I just mentioned, minus Halo 5, which will be a full price released in December of next year.
I think Microsoft are taking the approach to Skyrim. Just release it constantly with updates. Soon there's going to be an HD version of all 5 games, 6 games, whatever.
Can I get a VR version? Because I'm totally down for that.
There's going to be a 4K version, a VR version, then a 4K VR version. So I think they're taking a leaf out of Bethesda's book here.
I'm totally down for a VR version. Hook me up. I want to be able to run around and drive a warthog and all that shit in VR.
So what's next to the chopping block after the 3rd of December? No, it's stale. 3rd of December. Arise, a simple story from Techland. That's on PC, PS4, and Xbox One.
Yes. So this the tagline for this is they say, set out on an adventure through the changing landscapes of memories, lush with feelings of love and loss. So it's a story-based game, heavily story-based, and I guess there are elements of time that you get to control. You can kind of flow it forward or maybe go backwards or slow it down. But I will say the art style of this is kind of what first caught my attention. It's a little bit cartoony. Well, a lot bit cartoony. But it looks like it might be an interesting story. There wasn't a ton of information on it that I saw yet. So this would obviously every week we put this stuff out. We put links out so you can check it out. It's $19.99. It'd be worth a look at if you like story-based games, if you like cartoony art style games.
It looks like a Viking Father Christmas.
Yeah, kind of in a way. Yeah, and this is some kind of I failed to mention it does have 2-player co-op and it's an adventure platformer, so it's a game that you could play with a friend.
Well, speaking of Father Christmas, there's actually a film out on Netflix called Klaus, and I tell you what, I love that film. That is a great film. Netflix again have knocked this one out the park. Klaus on Netflix, excellent film. Need to watch it. What's this Skellboy, and why is it on Twitch or Switch? And why am my eyes seeing this on here? I mean, let's face it, the Switch isn't a gaming platform. Why is this even on our list track?
Oh, are we going to sidetrack the episode into a conversation about whether or not the Switch is a gaming console or not?
You know me, Drac. Any opportunity I get.
So also on the 3rd of December, Skellboy will be out on Switch, and then later in 2020 it'll be out on PC, Mac, Linux, on Steam. And so I know you like to rag on Zelda games and stuff like that. This is very much something that feels like it's in the vein of an old school Zelda game as far as the play style. It's an action adventure game. It's kind of an isometric view, and the funny thing about the way that they've done this, obviously very cartoony, but it's all the characters and the creatures you run into look like they're 2D, but the world is 3D. So it's almost like you have these little card stand-ups that are moving around and twisting and doing their thing. It's kind of an interesting look. We'll be running trailer footage, so you can check that out if you're watching the Facebook or the YouTube versions. But it's a cute looking game. Like I said, it'll be out on Switch on the 3rd, and then later on PC and Mac and Linux next year.
It kind of reminds me of the old, Game Boy style Pokemon games that you get to play, but obviously not set in a top-down view, but sort of like an isometric sort of view. It's a bit like that.
Yep, yeah, and the graphics, they're a little bit pixelated, but well, I should say some of the stuff is a little bit pixelated. Other of it seems to be blended pretty well, but it looks like it's a cutesy kind of fun game, and especially coming out on something like the Switch, it looks like it could be some fun to take with you. Especially if you're commuting back and forth to work, it give you something to fill up that time.
Yeah, no.
Well, if you're into those kinds of games.
Oh, the game I'm into, it's a console I'm not, so carry on. I'll stop there, carry on.
Yeah, I've heard different stories. I heard about what happened when you got your hands on a Switch and how much you enjoyed that, so...
I was playing
moving right along, though.
Never mind, okay, I'll leave that one lie there.
But moving on to the next one that's also out that day. This is one I think that I can't decide if it's something that we should all get and play, and if it's one of those things where it's like you're going to want to strangle your mates, because the game is called Tools Up. It'll be out on Steam, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One, and you can play it from 1 to 4 players, and they say that the goal is to renovate apartments within a specified time limit with whatever project specifications you're given. So, you clean up the mess, you do all the demolition, and then you start building things up and decorating things and whatnot. The funny thing about this is I think you can sabotage each other, or you can just decide to go completely off the rails and just destroy everything. So It's one of those things where it's like, I guess it depends on how you play together, whether or not you can have fun doing that stuff, or if you're the kind of person who really wants to get through and get the objectives done, but you have a BAM in your group that just wants to destroy everything. It might be a bit frustrating.
Whoa. I won't be the one sabotaging. Everyone thinks that it'll be me breaking the game or something. No, it's always G. It's always G. And anyway, this looks like a Mr. Potato Head / Sims 3. So that's what it looks like to me. So yeah, G will be all over this like a hot pancake.
Well, there is some truth to what you're saying about G, but there is a reason, or I should say, there's a definitive reason why we call it Bammage.
Because Bam brings the damage, yes. But that's a totally different context of gaming, right? I am all damage all the time. I'm full on freaking damage, damage all me, totally. But G's the one that will sabotage the game for others later on. That's his playstyle.
Yeah, he was doing a little bit of that when we were playing Destiny the other weekend.
He definitely does sabotage other things. So, 5th of December, Darksiders Genesis on PC and Stadia consoles in February 2020 from Nordic HQ. Yeah, okay. Stadia is a thing? I thought it bombed.
Well, I think it's in process of potentially bombing. It might be one of those things that they turn around. We'll have to wait and see.
The thing about the Stadia, right, is that they launched a great idea, but because it's a typical Google product, they don't actually follow through with their great ideas. It's a great idea, really it is, but again, there's lack of commitment and lack of following through, so there we go.
Yeah, we'll have to see if they stick with it and manage to improve it. And the funny thing is, the stuff I've been seeing about Stadia is it seems like, whereas before Stadia was released, they had these, I almost want to say, kind of unrealistic expectations on internet providers about how they were just going to step it up and give us faster connection so that we could play the games on Stadia.
Definitely not.
Nope. Now I've seen stuff where they're like, oh yeah, some of the problems with the games on Stadia are because they weren't developed for Stadia, and we believe that the developers are going to develop better for Stadia later. So those are not exact quotes, but that's paraphrasing there.
The problem about good hardware is it needs good software to shift it. And putting the onus on internet providers to step up their game just shows the complete disconnect certain people within Google have. Yeah, Google might have the best Wi-Fi connection and the best internet land speeds, whatever, within the Google's campus, but everywhere else, yeah, not so much.
So, anyway, this is different from the other Darksiders games in the past. A lot of those, from what I remember seeing, it's like a third-person action game. This is a top-down action RPG-ish. It will be, the Fourth Horseman that you haven't had a chance to play before, but I think you also get a chance to play as, what was it? Was the first Horseman, was it Death?
Yeah, I think it was Death.
So I think you get to switch between the two of them. There'd be, combat, obviously, puzzle solving, explore around. They have different boss battles. It very much looks like it looks very much like a Diablo type game, but from the sounds of things, it will be different in just how it plays. The price is set at $29.99. It is available on Steam, and it has a 15% discount on Steam until the 5th of December.
Steam, always with them discounts.
And we haven't even hit the winter sales yet. I'm still waiting to see that. All right, and the day after that, there's an indie dev that's releasing another game on Steam into early access called Inferna. This is going to be a free-to-play MMORPG. So, it's a very fantasy-esque, RPG. The visual style of this reminds me a lot of Neverwinter Nights Online. I'm kind of curious to see if it plays similar to that. I had a lot of fun with Neverwinter Online when it first came out, until it got a little bit grindy. They're going to have crossplay that's going to be at least between PC and mobile devices, so that'd be kind of curious, just if nothing else, just curious to see how that works. But how are they going to support this game since it's free-to-play? Is it going to be loot boxes? Is it going to be microtransactions? I wasn't able to find much of any information on that yet. I did kind of tool around on their forums and stuff to see, or I should say on the Steam discussion forums, didn't see much of anything there. So how it gets monetized remains to be seen, but you can be certain it's probably going to be, some form or combination of microtransactions and loot boxes.
Oh, I'm not editing that out. I'm leaving that right in there. You're forgetting to mention as well, it looks like it's also going to be mobile phone and PC crossplay. And to be honest, it reminds me... apologies. I'm not editing this out either, then it seems. It reminds me of Skyrim, but like a more sort of rounded version of Skyrim. Just the way the sort of guys stand and walk about and swing and just the whole visuals of it. It reminds me of the first time I saw Skyrim. That's what it reminds me of. But that's Skyrim, bro.
Well, and it's free to play, or at least free to start. So hey, all you got to lose is a little bit of time and some internet bandwidth.
And let's face it, you can't lose your internet bandwidth nowadays. The Stadia needs it. So, 10th of December, Mechwarrior 5, Mercenaries on PC. Piranha Games. Mechwarrior 5, good lord. Mechwarrior's still going. Good lord.
It is, although recent releases of Mechwarrior have seen it be more of like a top-down, either like an ARPG style or strategy RTS type style games. This one is finally how I would want to play if I was going to play a Mechwarrior game. You're actually going to be first person in the mech, piloting the mech and moving around. So that I'm kind of looking forward to. I don't expect I'll pick this up when it comes out at release because it is $49.99 unless you want to pay for the additional digital materials. I think there's a manual, a soundtrack, and some 4K backgrounds for $59.99, so just for $10 more. But that, I don't know. For Mechwarrior fans, I think that this looks like it will be an amazing and an awesome game. There's a lot of like destroyable environments. Watching the videos and watching them take down buildings and stuff like that, they just kind of fall to pieces is really cool. You also get to do things like, in addition to all the things that you'll be doing to customize and upgrade your own mech, I guess you can also form your own mercenary company and hire mercs, and then there's some management of that company and what it goes out and does. So there's a lot more than just a first-person game to play, and it will have 4-player co-op, so you will be able to play with at least 3 of your friends.
I've got a few things. What's that game that everyone said they wanted, but turns out they didn't, and they call in a mech from the spaces, and it lands, and you jump in it and start murdering things. What's that game called?
I feel like you're trying to allude to Anthem.
No, not Anthem. This is a older game that basically crashed and burned. It looks like a better version of that game, except you don't have to run around on the outside of your mech getting a kill streak before you get your mech dropped in.
Was it Pantropy, maybe?
No, anyway, it doesn't really matter. It's a better version of that game. It reminds me of Mechwarrior when I played it. I think it was 2001. Yeah, 2001 when I played Mechwarrior last. That's, good lord, that's 18 years ago.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, Mechwarrior games that I remember from way back when, like what you're talking about, they were first-person games. I'm not saying that there weren't other ones, but those are just the ones that I remember. And I've been kind of a little bit disappointed that the ones that have been coming out have been either, top-down or isometric view. I've been wanting them to put us back in the cockpit. So, yeah, and I wouldn't be opposed to a VR version of this, although I do know that the VR crowd is a much smaller crowd to develop, much smaller percentage of people who might buy the game. So I don't expect to see it in VR, but it would be kind of cool to pilot one of these in VR.
Yeah, it would be. It looks like a game that I used to play when I was a youngster. Yeah, good lord, 18 years ago. Freaking hell, am I that old? Yeah, it looks like I'm that old. Good lord.
Well, here's something else that might make you feel old. Do you know who Avicii is?
Stunned silence. No.
Well, apparently, he was working on a game, at least from what I was reading on their website. I guess he passed away. Now, I don't know the details of that. His career was not one that I followed, but I guess before that, he had started working on a game with Hello Games, the same guys that made No Man's Sky. And the game itself is called Avicii Invector, and it's a rhythm game, and it's got a lot of, I think they said it was like 25 of his songs in it, as well as, I don't want to say as well as, I don't know if there's any songs from any other artist or not, but basically you're piloting like a little ship, and it's all rhythm-based gameplay as you fly, along different tracks and through different things. So if you like rhythm games and you like pretty neon colors and you like EDM music, here's another game for you.
It's basically a total Wipeout and Guitar Hero with vector graphics from the 80s, essentially, if you want to break it down into those 3 sort of categories.
I don't know, the graphics are a lot prettier than the 80s.
Of course, everything's prettier than the 80s. Everything's better than what it was in the 80s. It's a better developed game than anything from the 80s. It's just vector graphics were a thing in the 80s with the neon sort of color schemes. That's what screams 80s to me. But this is essentially those 3 elements put together to make a game, and it's not necessarily my sort of thing. Looks very nice though, I must say. It looks very, very nice. Very slick, very slick.
I could see having some fun with this, and the fact that it's only $20.52 is a nice selling point for me too. And this will be out on Steam, PS4, Xbox One, and the Switch.
Yeah, send it to the Switch. The Switch deserves a game like this.
Well, you'll be happy about the next one then, because the Boneworks is not going to be out on the Switch. It's only going to be out on Steam.
Yeah, this game belongs on PC only. You're right.
So Boneworks is a VR action adventure game where they're using what they're calling advanced experimental physics mechanics. And the cool thing about this is it looks like it's been made for the new Valve Index. And so, each of your fingers can work independently. They're giving you, tons and tons of different weaponry, whether it's, guns, swords, all kinds of different melee weapons. They have some experimental type weaponry in there, like energy weapons and things like that. You basically go through, you'll have some combat, some puzzles and stuff like that. They're saying that you should be able to move through the environment as you would expect to move through a real environment. They list that, the body physics on the character. So like if you look down, it's not just floating hands, you have arms, that should look pretty real and be within like normal parameters that you would expect in real life. So I would say, looking at the videos, it looks interesting. It looks fun. I don't know if it's going to be just for the Valve Index or if you'll be able to play it with other VR headsets. And I don't know how vastly different that experience might be, but it definitely looks interesting.
It looks like a Gary's Mod version of Half-Life, but with VR elements. It needs a lot. I think it needs a lot more fine-tuning because it doesn't look right. It looks like a very, very sort of late 90s, early 2000s sort of game. I mean, I'm not knocking it. I mean, good God, I couldn't develop something like this for the VR. But I'm glad to see there's actually software out for the VR that could actually be popular, and this could be it.
It looks like it'll be a lot of fun to play through, but, I guess time will tell. Now, the rest of the games that we have on the list, the 3 that are still here, don't have specific release dates, but all are scheduled or said to be releasing sometime in December. And the first one up, Bam, you used to do some snowboarding, didn't you?
Yeah, still do. Yeah, but unfortunately, I've been sequestered in indoor arenas. Nothing outrageous or fancy. I haven't actually shred proper pieced. Good Lord, since like 2010. That's 9 years. I've been doing indoor bits and pieces, just to slate that thirst. But yeah, I've still got my 3 boards, man. I love them. I
don't think I've been snowboarding since probably like the year after I got married.
Bloody hell! Talk about
it's been like it's been like 12 years now.
Good God!
Yeah, I think it's been about 10 or 12 years since I've gone snowboarding in real life. But I guess if I want to try and get that quote unquote experience and high again, Powder VR is supposed to release sometime in December. And the funny thing about this, you can do snowboarding or skiing, but the funny thing about this is they talk to you about going like hundreds of miles an hour, and in some of the clips I've seen, they're going upwards of 100 miles an hour. I don't think I'd ever want to go that fast on a snowboard because if you crash, you'd probably be dead.
Right, now, well, hang on. Right, now, bear in mind, right, when I did snowboarding, right, I did so for, let's call it the company I worked with. It was the company. And we went to Mercenaries, and they've got an Olympic sort of grand slalom and whatever have you, and you partook and did some slaloms and whatever have you. But the best snowboarding I've ever had was in Les Arcs with my K2 Zeppelin. Honestly, geez, that board and fresh snow is like gliding. It's and you just rock back and let the board take you wherever it wants to go. However, what I'm trying to get at is don't take a K2 Zeppelin on packed snow. I'd recommend maybe a Burton, a very flexible Burton. Take something like that. Yeah. Do they have these sort of bits and pieces in this game? I don't know. It just looks like a normal VR game, snowboarding VR game. I mean, I did some of that. SSX Tricky. I played some of that. Reminds me of that.
Yeah, I didn't see a lot about whether or not there's going to be any kind of customization over the equipment that you're using or anything like that. They talk about there being 6 different mountains and different environments and challenges and stuff like for you to be able to go through. I think it'll be kind of fun. I wonder if there's going to be motion sickness issues, even for people who maybe don't typically suffer from that. I know when I played the Spider-Man Homecoming VR game, I never got motion sick, but there were a few times when I started to feel a little vertigo from, just all the swinging around and the heights and stuff like that. It's still amazing to me that you can feel that by just looking at a screen, but they really do kind of put you in that environment. So I kind of wonder how's that going to feel when you're, going 100 miles an hour plus down the mountain and then you crash into a tree.
Your bones will break on impact. That's what will happen.
No. Yeah, in real life, yes, but what's that going to be like in VR, I wonder?
Well, it's like what they say. If you die in game, you die in real life, bro.
We have entered the Matrix.
Yeah, no.
All right, well, the next one up is a kind of a cutesy one that'll be out on Steam, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. It's from Modus Games, and it's called Lost Words. Now, this is a 2D adventure platformer that's got, mixed kind of watercolor type graphics in order, it looks like, to tell some of the story. And then it's a 2D, but the environment and the way that they've done it gives a feeling of 3D for the animated style for when you're actually playing through the game. But it looks like some of the game is mixed between looking at a notebook at watercolor type graphics and in this, 2D, 3D-ish type environment where you then are taking some of those words from the notebook and using them to affect the environment. So you might have a word like rise where you can pull that over a rock and you make the rock go up higher so that you can then take and get further up a cliffside so you can move on throughout the level. So I think that's an interesting concept. I think it's something that probably could be really good for kids, especially, if you're trying to get your kids to read some more, and this gives them an interactable way to read and make use of those words.
Yeah, not my cup of tea, really. Honestly, I'm not interested in this one at all, sadly. I've got nothing much to say about it. I'm quite keen on Everreach, Project Eden. It reminds me of Mass Effect Andromeda, except better in almost every way.
Yeah, I'd say it's got a little bit of a feel to that. It's got a feel of some of the other sandboxy type games that I've seen that are spacefaring sandboxy type games. Now this is set to be a story-driven action RPG. It's third-person perspective from everything I've seen. Unfortunately, it's only single player though. That was probably my biggest disappointment with this, was that it was only single.
Mine too. I was there with you. I was very surprised as a single player. I mean, this day and age, something like this, a single player, really dropped the ball there.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't have a problem with single player games. I just like to see the option for, at least co-op. I don't need massive multi-online player stuff, but at least co-op. But I will say that the graphics look nice. Just with the last couple games, we don't know what the price is, but this will be going on to Steam, or at least it should be releasing sometime in December in Steam.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing this on the PS4, personally, but again, it's got to have a multiplayer function. I mean, nowadays with social play and massive gaming bits and pieces like Destiny, Anthem, and so on, you've got to have the social aspect, and I think they're cutting themselves out of a massive market for that. But then, such is what it is, you can't really make what there isn't.
Well, again, I don't know if it needs the social aspect, but at least the aspect of being able to play with, some friends so that you can, traverse and explore these things together.
I honestly think that's the single player mode, and this will be its Achilles heel, because there's nothing else really much to do apart from play the game, which I suppose is not a bad thing. But nowadays I do think social play is a mandatory thing, not something nice to see. It's one of the mandatory bits and pieces you've got to have in there with a game like this.
Well, and those have been the 12 or 13 games we thought you might be interested in taking a look at that come out in December. So thank you very much for sticking with us and listening to that. And as always, likes, subscribes, and all of the clicks, all of the icons, all of the things, we greatly appreciate it. Those of you who've already done those things, thank you very much. We do appreciate your listenership.
Yes, and just to reiterate what Drac said, guys, thank you very much for listening. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll be here as we always are every Wednesdays and doing our bits and pieces. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you for tuning in. And anyway, enough of that. Drac, have you really thought about putting cider and chili pepper together? What do you reckon about that? Would that be good?
It could be. I think it depends on the combination, because here's the thing. I've had some beers that have like hot pepper stuff in them, and they do have some heat to them too, which makes them enjoyable. So yeah, I mean, if you get the right mix, it's gonna take some doing, but if you get the right mix, it could be good.
I mean, I'm not talking about sticking in a freaking huge slab of ghost pepper, but I'm talking about maybe 1 or 2 rings of jalapeno, just to get that warmth, and that it helps with with that sort of sensation you get in your mouth. It opens up bits and pieces that wouldn't normally be open to sort of drinking apple cider.
Oh yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like I said, some of the beers that I've tried that have that mixture in them, it's a good mix, or it can be if done right.